as we continue, we've had them enter the land, the people of Israel have entered the land. Now it's time to conquer. And remember, that's in quotes. And we're going to turn over here to our drawing. The people come in at a place called Gilgal. It's right about here. And you can see here on the map that's printed on page 72, it might be more helpful than mine. They're going to make their way to Jericho. There are 3 cities that God says those 3 cities are dedicated for total destruction. One is Jericho. One is fun to say. It's called Ai. We're going to look at it in a minute. And then one is way up here. It's called Hatzor. God says, I have 3 cities that I want you to totally annihilate, but everything else I'll drive out slowly but surely before you. Now here's the problem. People of Israel are told, hey, go in there and drive out the Canaanites. But they're not a military. They don't have an army. These are the kids of slaves growing up, wandering around in the wilderness. In fact, they don't even have food unless God provides the manna for them. They don't have anything. They're not trained warriors. And so what is God's battle plan going to be? Here you are. There's Jericho. It's a military fort. Go up there and take it. What's the battle strategy? We're going to walk around it for 7 days. That's it. We're going to walk around the city for 7 days. And on the 7th day, we're going to walk around the city and we're going to yell at the wall. Sound like a good strategy? Like, that's the plan. If I am one of the people of Israel, I'd be weirded out right now. Like, sure, this is cool. We're in the land. That was awesome. God piled the waters up. But like, is that really going to work? Is that really the plan? Joshua, you got to be kidding me. And what we see as they go in to conquer Jericho, we see that in chapter 6, verse 1, Jericho was shut up inside and outside. They're afraid. They've seen that the Israelites have come through, and now the Israelites have marched down to Jericho. Now, we have to get the right picture of Jericho, or we will have a very bizarre understanding of what's going on. When I traditionally have pictured Jericho, and usually it's because of maybe like our felt board, stuff like in Sunday school growing up, or our storybook Bibles, or just the way we picture these things, I often picture something like the walls of Troy in the movie Troy with Brad Pitt from like 10 years ago, or like Minas Tirith or Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings. I picture this big fort and castle, and that's unfortunate because that gives us a certain picture of what's going on. The problem is the Jericho that the Israelites are conquering, the Jericho of the day of Joshua, it's about an acre in size. That's it. It's an acre. It's a military fort. And I'll draw it over here so you can see it. The wall, quote unquote, of Jericho, essentially they would build houses of this fort in a circle, kind of a semicircle like this. And that semicircle formed a perimeter. That outside part of the wall of these houses and these buildings, these military buildings, that's your wall. That's the wall of Jericho. Now, I say that because we want to get the right picture in our heads. When we make sometimes we make the stories in the Bible way too big and fantastical, and sometimes we make them way too small and minuscule. And when we take a look at the picture of Jericho, that's more like what we're talking about. It's about an acre in size. It is a military fort to protect this part of Canaan from invasion from the river. And they're afraid. The Israelites something's going on. They've made their way through the river. We don't know how that happened. Here they are marching around the city. And we have the battle plan described here on page 73. And it's meant to be humorous. It's meant to be funny. This is a ridiculous plan. Now they're walking around it with the ark, this box. And remember, look at the bottom of page 73. Our summary of the ark is this. The ark is the symbol of God's presence, promise, and power. Now, when we turn to page 74, God told them, everything in Jericho I want you to devote to destruction. It's called the harem ban. That's the Hebrew word. And only 3 cities received the harem ban: Jericho, Ai, and Hatzor. And this city is, God tells them, destroy everything in it. But what's the everything in it? Most likely soldiers. Probably not even many of their families. These are probably soldiers that are defending this military outpost. And what we see is this ragtag group of Israelites that have no military training, no army. God supernaturally gives this military stronghold into their hands. God gives them this victory. They didn't earn it. They didn't deserve it. Yet because of God's sovereign grace for them, He has blessed them with this victory. Now, what we're going to see as we turn to our next battle is they made a mistake. And by they, we're going to pinpoint one. One of the Israelites, he decided to disobey the Lord. And instead of devoting the city to destruction, this person named Achan, he took some of the spoils from Jericho and he hid them in his house. And that's going to cause a major problem when they go up to their next battle. So the people cross the river here. Let's get our picture straight. And most of the people, after the Jericho victory, they return back down and they hang out in Gilgal. They just camp right here. Next, the Israelites send just a handful of soldiers up to Ai. And that's the second battle. Now, we did a Out of Curiosity podcast talking about the issue of genocide and the issue of really what's going on with the numbers in Jericho and the Ai story. What kind of numbers are we talking about? And that's on our Out of Curiosity podcast. And it's called Did God Condone Genocide in the book of Joshua. But what we have listed here as they make their way up to the second battle is they send in about 3 troops of soldiers. The Israelites send in about 40 or 50 guys to go fight Ai. And instead of winning, this puny little town called Ai is basically, literally the word Ai means the ruin. That's what Ai means. It's always listed as Ha-Ai, the ruin, in the biblical narrative. And so this is a ruined old military fort that a city outside of Ai called Bethel, this particular city used Ai as its military fort to protect it when somebody was coming in to invade. The Israelites should easily win, and yet they are routed. And the question is, why? Look at the bottom of page 74. They are routed, and the reason, and they all freak out. They lose at Ai, and they all freak out. Why did they lose? Look at what God says to Joshua. He says, "Get up. Why have you fallen on your face? You have lost because Israel has sinned. They have transgressed my covenant, the covenant I commanded. They have taken the devoted things. They stole, they lied, they put them among their own belongings." What they do then is they begin to cast lots as in the nation. They cast lots between each tribe, then between the different clans of each tribe, then between the families of each tribe, then between the fathers of each tribe. And the story is drawn out intentionally. One person and his family has stolen from Jericho. And because of that, the entire nation has suffered at Ai. And all of this long process of them casting lots to see whose fault is this, it's a chance after chance for Achan to come forward. And yet, he remains silent. His shame, his fear, his guilt keeps him silent. And eventually, he is found out. And that leads us to the chart on page 75. We have a contrast between 2 characters, and it's fascinating. We have a Canaanite prostitute woman who goes down in the story of Joshua as the hero. And we have an Israelite respectable man who goes down as the villain. And I note that because it's just like the Bible to flip the world system on its head over and over and over again and give us not what you expect, but this is Yahweh's man or woman. It's very rarely the one that we're expecting. So the Israelites then, after they repent of this sin, they then defeat Ai, and now their campaign, they go central and they begin to take this territory, southern, and then they work their way north and conquer Hatzor, and each time they return to Gilgal, okay? So they start at Gilgal, they conquer Jericho, come back. They go to Ai, they lose, come back. They go back to Ai, this time they win. Now they begin to take out military leaders in Bethel, down in southern Israel, and then up in northern Israel, or Canaan at the time, and each time they work their way back to Gilgal. So they're doing a very clever, smart military strategy to cut off the Canaanites from each other and then to take out key leaders. And we're going to find that that is the extent of their, quote, conquest. They've come into the land, they've taken out the key leadership of the land, and now all that's left for them to do is to move into the land and settle it, to go possess it. And that's where we're going to pick up our next notch, to possess the land.